Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. So it is once again that time. A new patch is about to roll out and there's a bunch of things to talk about, a bunch of big changes that you should definitely know about when going into this patch so that hopefully nothing surprises you and you know exactly what to expect. I make this video for you guys every single 2 weeks, so if this is still something you enjoy, let me know by simply hitting that like button. Now this patch is definitely full of nerfs and there's a couple of buffs and changes here and there, but the majority of changes are going to be just flat out nerfs, so that's just something to keep in mind. But without much further ado, let's get right into the big changes coming to patch 6.21. Now the first thing that's coming this patch technically that isn't necessarily focused on a champion or a buff or a nerf is in fact actually the new game mode Doombots of Doom, the Halloween game mode. It is going to be technically coming in the patch of 6.21 because it's going to be enabled the weekend of, I believe starting around the Thursday. So I'm sure most of you have already seen my gameplay of this game mode or other YouTubers gameplay. I mean, it's pretty damn sweet. There's a lot of really cool things. It's a lot of fun to do with your friends. It is challenging to a certain extent and I mean, it's definitely a great experience. And I'm sure most of you are looking forward to trying this out with your friends or just solo or whatever, so wanted to kind of bring this up in this video to let you know that even though it's not technically directly related to patch 6.21, it will be coming out during this patch regardless. But moving on to the second thing we'll be talking about in this video, it is going to be an actual change happening to a champion and it's going to be a nerf happening to Graves. Graves in my opinion is one of the best champions currently in League of Legends to the point where I almost never see him just because he's pretty much banned every single game. Just the amount of damage he can do, being a ranged champion and also being quite tanky for a ranged champion thanks to his True Grid passive makes him just pretty much the best of several worlds. So here's the nerf that he's receiving in this patch. True Grid now actually has 8 stacks rather than 4, but the magic resistance and armor is halved per stack that you get. So essentially what this means is now you will still get the same amount of armor and MR, but it'll just simply take longer to get because now you have to reach up to 8 stacks to get the same amount of armor and MR rather than just 4, so you can almost think of it as being double the time. Now that does seem like a very big nerf and it takes a while to get those stacks up again, so what they did to sort of try and compensate for this is dashing towards an enemy champion with your E ability of course will now grant you 2 stacks of True Grits rather than just 1. All in all, a pretty good nerf to Graves, sort of brings down the tankiness level of the champion, so it does take a bit longer to ramp up, but either way he will still get to that same point regardless. It'll just take a tiny bit more time, so I mean not the biggest nerf in the entire world but a good one nonetheless, and it should definitely affect his early game clears in the jungle since now again the armor stacks are just simply not as high. Moving along to the next thing I want to talk about. Now this one some people might have missed. Now it's not exactly happening in this coming patch because it's actually already on the live servers, but it happened around halfway through patch 6.20. Ivan received some hotfixes because apparently he was just not really performing up to the standards that he should be, or at least just far below it. So his health growth got increased, his magic resistance was increased, his attack speed got increased, and his attack speed growth as well was increased. As I said, however, this is not a buff happening in patch 6.21, this is something that did happen halfway through patch 6.20. I just feel like a lot of people may have missed it or not even realized that it has been implemented, so consider this your sort of reminder or update that Ivan did get some buffs somewhere through the mid-patch. Following this, we have some yet again decently big changes happening to Kog'Maw. I mean, Riot just seems to try to keep putting him in a good spot and I mean, they're still experimenting. So for this patch, it seems like Riot is going to be looking towards Kog'Maw's ultimate, and the first thing they're doing is lowering the mana cost by 10, and each subsequent shot has also been lowered in mana by 10. The time for mana increase for subsequent shots has been lowered to 8 seconds from 10, and it now has a new effect where it now does damage based on enemies missing health from base damage up to 150% damage, and enemies below 40% will still take extra or double the base minimum damage. So on the right there, you're going to be seeing 2 different stats, the new damage and how the new damage amplification works, and the old damage as well. So the first thing you'll notice is of course the base damage is definitely higher, so hitting people at full HP or close to full HP is going to be a bit more rewarding. And you're going to be getting the damage increase on his ultimate sooner since it now just simply scales on missing HP up to 40%, where then it just simply doubles. But when it comes to acting as an execution type ability, well, the old damage on his ultimate was just simply better at doing so because it ramped up the damage much higher higher once they hit that certain threshold, especially below 25% HP, where it did triple the damage. So think of it this way, as an execution ability, it does less damage and it's not as reliable, but when it comes to all-around uses and actually hitting people that are actually fairly high in HP and not almost near death, his ultimate is now definitely much more reliable in that sense. So I definitely feel like this will put Kog'Maw in an overall better state and not be so gimmicky with his ultimate and only having it being actually useful for about half of the time. Next up, we also have some changes happening to Master Yi. Now, this isn't anything absolutely crazy or direct or even necessarily a buff or a nerf. It's just going to be a lot of bug fixes, which at the end of the day, you can consider a buff, but it's not explicitly stated as so. So there's going to be a bunch of quality of life and bug fixes happening to his Alpha Strike, his Q ability, his Double Strike, which is his passive, and even his Wuju style, which is his E. It should just make Master Yi work as intended and just be the champion he should be and not have any issues pop up randomly and make things just kind of awkward. His Q is the one receiving the most quality of life and bug fixes, which I will talk about just a couple. Alpha Strike will now give him vision of where he is going per bounce, which is a pretty cool thing to have. And he will even get assists on enemies that he Qs without the Q actually finally hitting them, as long as they were supposed to be part of the chain. Again, like I said, nothing absolutely direct, but bug fixes here and there, as we've seen with many other champions like Yasuo or Azir, are definitely considered buffs and can make the champion just better and flow better as well. But let's move into the next change happening, and this one is going to be towards Nasus. So his ultimate is going to be getting two new effects. Now it will grant him 15, 35, or 55 armor and magic resistance on use, obviously rank 1, 2, and 3 ultimates, on top of also giving him 1, 2, or 3 armor and magic resistance per second for the duration of his ultimate. But on the contrary, he will no longer convert the damage done into attack damage with his ultimate. So I'll be completely honest, I don't really play a whole lot of Nasus, nor do I really see Nasus all that often as well. The main reason could be because, well, his ultimate before gave him that huge burst of attack damage, but I mean, he's a champion that is fairly easy to kite, so it was a little difficult to take all of that attack damage granted by his ultimate and actually put it to use and do something with it. Now, maybe the fact that he's actually being put towards more of a tanky type champion and can actually soak up more damage, it can put him in a better spot in the current meta and make him a bit more useful. So I could be wrong on this, but I feel like this might be a buff and put him in a better direction as to how this champion should overall work and fit into a team. But I won't lie, I'm definitely sort of guessing on this change again because I don't really play Nasus, nor do I really see him all that often. But maybe this is the change to bring Nasus slowly back into the meta. Following this, however, we have some nerfs happening to arguably one of the best junglers in League of Legends when mastered, Nidalee. I don't know about you guys, but if you've ever faced someone who's just quite exceptional at playing Nidalee jungle, well, it really is a difficult time. It really just feels like she starves you out. There's not a whole lot you can do to actually stop her from doing what she wants. She has a lot of mobility and she's just exceptionally hard to deal with, great duelist, a whole bunch of things. So in my opinion, the nerfs happening to her are definitely justified, but here's what the nerfs are. Her Q and W in Cougar form now have a 6-second cooldown rather than 5, and her E ability in human form, which is the heal, also got some nerfs. Now, even though it did get a 2.5 increase in the AP ratios, the heal value actually now scales based on missing HP. So what exactly does this mean for this ability? Well, if the target you're healing is exceptionally low on HP, then the heal offered by this ability is going to be slightly greater. But other than that, and for the majority of the uses on this ability, the HP gain back from it is just simply not going to be as high. So think of it roughly this way. If you're above maybe 10 or 15% HP, then the heal is just simply a nerf and it's not going to be healing as much. If you're below that HP, chances are you'll be getting healed for more. Now the second last thing we'll be talking about is going over to Nunu. Now Nunu received some pretty crazy buffs in the previous patch to the point where I'm definitely starting to see him more often and he's actually a very annoying champion. It seems like Riot agrees that maybe they went a little too ham on the buffs and made him a little too strong, so he's receiving a little bit of nerfs to try and maybe balance him out and put him at an even playing ground for this patch. So one of the new things that they added to him in the previous patch is the consume passive effect, where for every large or epic monster consumed, Nunu gets a stack up to 5 stacks that increases size, gives him bonus maximum HP, and also gives him some out of combat movement speed. So what they're doing now is instead of giving him 3% maximum health per stack up to 5 stacks, which is actually quite ridiculous, it'll now only be 2%. I mean, even sitting at 2%, obviously getting 10% at 5 stacks, 10% increased HP is quite a bit. I mean, that is a lot of HP. It lasts for 55 seconds before falling off 1 stack at a time. I mean, that is a lot of HP, so this is definitely a good nerf. It's not the biggest thing in the entire world, but maybe it's enough to kind of put him in a spot as to where he's not just flat out seemingly broken, but you know, he's a strong pick and you can definitely pick him up if you really want to. Now, last but not least is going to be a quality of life change happening to Zac. Similar to Master Yi, it's not a direct buff or nerf, but it will make Zac just easier to play and even play against. Currently, if you ever use Zac's E ability and you just jump to a certain area, whether you're playing Zac or you're playing against him, you can get a rough idea as to where he'll land and the kind of AoE area that he'll be hitting, but you're not entirely sure because, well, there's no actual indicators. So now they finally added one. So whenever you're playing Zac, you'll know exactly the AoE that your E ability will be hitting, and if you're playing against Zac, it'll show you on the ground where exactly he'll be hitting as well, so you'll have an easier time dodging it and maybe having a better idea as to where he'll actually land. Again, this isn't really a buff or a nerf, this is kind of helping both sides of the game, whether you're playing or playing against Zac. Because at the very moment, this is a strong champion you see him quite often, and he's without question a top jungle pick. But either way, guys, I mean, that is about it for this video. There you have it, some of the biggest changes coming to patch 6.21, a lot of nerfs, a couple of buffs here and there, and also the new Doom Bots of Doom game mode coming in this weekend. So the OP champions of this patch, I have to say, will most likely potentially be Nasus, or at least coming back into the meta. I feel like Kog'Maw is just simply going to be all around a better champion, and Master Yi might slowly make his way back just because of all of the crazy amount of bug fixes that they finally have finished. But other than that, guys, I mean, that is about it for this patch. Hope you have learned a thing or two. Hope you're ready to jump into it and not be surprised by anything completely crazy. If you did enjoy this video, let me know by hitting that like button. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't. Share this with your friends so everyone else knows what's coming in this patch. And I hope to see you for my next video. Peace.